It's January 23rd, 1922. You're standing in a small Toronto hospital room holding your breath. The air is heavy with anticipation. In front of you lies Leonard Thompson, a 14-year-old boy weighing only 65 pounds. Starved not just for food, but by a disease that has ravaged his body. His skin clings to his bones. His breathing is shallow. Diabetes has made his survival an impossibility. Just 12 days earlier, you tried to save him, but the first injection failed, leaving Leonard as fragile as before. Now, armed with a more purified version of your treatment, you stand at the brink. Beside you, your colleagues watch in tense silence, the boy's father clinging desperately to what little hope remains. His face pale and gaunt, as if he too is taking on the illness as it steals his son. The weight of his grief fills the room. You feel the pit in your stomach tighten as the syringe pierces Leonard's thin arm. You don't know if this will work, but deep inside, there's a familiar feeling, one that's been there all your life and carried you to this moment. Hope. And then something extraordinary happens. Leonard blinks open his eyes, his pale face softens, and life flickers where death had once begun its claim. Over the next 24 hours, the tests come back. As you read the results, your heart skips a beat. It's working. The treatment is working. In this moment, anything seems possible. A diagnosis that has meant certain death for thousands of years is now treatable. You've defied the impossible and changed the course of medicine forever. But as you stand on the edge of history, you, Sir Frederick Banting, are fatally unaware of a grave miscalculation, one that would haunt Insulin, your creation, for the next century and beyond. How could so much persistence be met with misfortune? Where did you go wrong? You grew up on a farm in Alliston, Ontario, the youngest of 5 siblings. Feels more like an afterthought than a blessing. They don't have much time for you, but that's fine. You've always been comfortable with your own thoughts. Quiet, observant. Life is easier that way. School, however, is a different story. Spelling becomes your sworn enemy. With every word or riddle, you consistently guess wrong. Your grades? Middling, at best. Fortunately, there was one thing that came easily to you. Bullying. Unfortunately, often as the recipient of it. Even the teachers, armed with 1920-style discipline, seemed determined to make you regret ever showing up. They called it a lesson, you considered it abuse. One day, after a particularly brutal beating, you've had enough. You approach your father with a simple 3-point argument. 1, you don't like school. 2, the kids are cruel. And 3, the teachers are worse. Your pitch? Quit. Vow to end your studies effective immediately. And unlike most kids trying to skip school, you've actually got a point. You've barely passed Latin, failed French, failed English twice, which how can they even say that if you speak the language perfectly, and you're averaging B's in even your best subjects. But your dad is a big believer in education, as was his father before him, and he knows one thing. An education means opportunities, beyond the farm, beyond manual labor. Reluctantly, you're convinced. So much so that while your siblings invest their inheritance in farms of their own, you choose to go to university. I guess they didn't get the same motivational lecture from Dad. But you're optimistic, as you've always been. Who knows, maybe one day you can even become a doctor. You enroll in a general arts degree at Victoria College where you work long nights, early mornings, and fail your first semester. Maybe Dad was wrong. Maybe you're not that remarkable. Below average at best the way school's concerned. But you know one thing. It's only failure if you stop. So you try again, this time applying to medical school. And surprisingly, you get in. Just as you begin to think the years of rejection are behind you, it's 1914 and the world is at war. Like countless young men around you, you enlist, eager to serve your country. And you're rejected. That's weird. You try again. Rejected. Turns out your vision isn't all that great. One final time and boom, you earn a place in the Royal Canadian Army Medical Corps. By 1916, you've completed medical school and are serving on the front lines in France. You refuse compensation for extra work, saying, it gives me a certain amount of pleasure to be able to help them, which repays me in ways money never could. Nice. When a 2-inch piece of German shrapnel unexpectedly cuts your visit to France short, your frontline duty ends. You receive a military cross for your service. Returning home after the war, you complete your residency at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, but there's no room for you on the full-time staff. The city's too busy anyway. So you set up a small practice in London, Ontario. There's just one problem. You're a doctor, not a businessman. The practice struggles. To make ends meet, you take a part-time job teaching at the University of Western Ontario. The subjects? Anthropology, kind of random, but also orthopedics, the study of musculoskeletal injuries and diseases. What you don't realize is the path that your financial misfortunes have sent you on. How a part-time job to keep food on the table could, quite literally, change the world. It's the autumn of 1920, and as a new professor, an assignment lands on your desk. Give a lecture on the pancreas. A single word, pancreas, and you're already overwhelmed. Other than a single class taken on the organ years earlier, you're not really sure what it is or where to begin. You take to the Google of your day, textbooks, piecing together the basics. That's when you stumble onto something that stops you cold. Diabetes. The disease is described as a slow death sentence, claiming the lives of countless people, especially children. One study from 30 years earlier catches your eye. 2 German scientists propose that diabetes is linked to the pancreas. Another theory suggests that a protein hormone from the organ could regulate blood sugar, but no one's been able to prove it. For decades, the greatest minds have tried to isolate the mysterious substance. All of them failed. That night, October 31st, 1920, you're jolted awake. A flash of insight, an idea that explains why everyone else might have failed. You grab a pen and scribble down notes in the dark, your heart racing. You approach your colleagues with the idea, and they push you towards John J.R. McLeod, a renowned physiologist at the University of Toronto. You lay out your idea, half expecting an applause, maybe a firm handshake, but he's skeptical of your idea, your credentials, and frankly, you. And he has every reason to be. Better scientists have tried and failed to do what you're proposing, but you refuse to give up. Eventually, he gives you access to extra resources, a lab, research animals, graduate students. He admits there's no harm in letting you try where others have failed. You flip a coin to decide who will assist you. The result? Charles Best. On May 17, 1921, your work begins. The lab is small, the summer is hot, the AC hasn't been invented yet, and performing surgery on test dogs is proving difficult. At every turn, McLeod criticizes your methods. He questions your theory. He doubts you. It's okay, he's off to Scotland for the summer anyway. Finally, a break. You've successfully extracted the early stages of insulin from a canine pancreas. While skeptical colleagues said the stuff looked like a thick brown mud, you saw it not for what it was, but for what it could be. On a hot summer day, you take the murky brown concoction and look it over. Maybe they're right. You pull the solution into a syringe and, along with Best, you treat a severely diabetic dog. It stabilizes. It lives for 70 days, far longer than anyone thought possible. Unfortunately, there's not enough insulin to keep it alive. It's not a complete victory, but it's a glimpse of something bigger. When McLeod returns from his trip to Scotland, you show him the results. Once again, he's skeptical, refusing your request for more resources. You think to yourself, great, this guy's been on vacation all summer while Best and I have been working, and now that we have a breakthrough, he just says no. But you find another way. Switching to pork and beef pancreases from livestock, you refine the process, extracting more insulin than ever before. Still, there's a problem. The extract isn't pure enough for humans. You approach McLeod again, this time asking for a biochemist. He assigns James Collip, a professor visiting from Alberta to work on other projects. His expertise helps to stabilize the insulin. Yet you get the sense your work is secondary to his other commitments. By January 1922, you're ready for the ultimate test, a human trial. But you can't inject just anyone till you're certain that it's safe. So you and Best inject yourselves. And other than some mild dizziness, there's no negative side effects. It's ready. You approach the desperate father of Leonard Thompson, a 14-year-old boy wasting away at just 65 pounds. His only treatment has been a starvation diet, which is slowly killing him. With no other options, his father agrees. And it works. You treat another patient, then another. Each success cements the reality. You've done it. In May 1922, you stand before the Association of American Physicians in Washington, D.C. You introduce the world to insulin. As the room erupts in applause, you feel it. A sense of triumph. For the first time in human history, diabetes is no longer a death sentence. It's a second chance at life. But as the applause fades, you wonder, will the world handle this gift with the care it deserves? Or will it betray the very people it was meant to save? You've seen what greed and blind ambition can do firsthand in France. But this This discovery needs to be different. In 1923, the Nobel Committee announces that your discovery has earned the highest honor a scientist can receive. But the award names only you and McLeod, not Charles Best, your partner in discovery, the man who stood by you through every moment in the lab. Another bigwig taking credit from the little guy. Publicly, you make it known that this was a team effort. Privately, you split your half of the prize money, $20,000, with Best. It's a small fortune for the time, and it ensures that he receives the recognition he deserves. McLeod does the same with Colin. It's like this guy struggles to have an original thought. It's not about the money, it's about doing what's right. With that in mind, you sell the patent for insulin to the University of Toronto for a symbolic $1. A physician should not profit from life-saving treatment, you say. The sale makes headlines. You watch as your vision unfolds into a reality beyond your wildest dreams. Insulin becomes the miracle it was meant to be, affordable, accessible, and life-saving for all who need it. Pharmaceutical companies, governments, healthcare providers, they form a coalition, ensuring that no one is left behind. The cost of insulin plummets, innovations in production make it purer and more effective, and synthetic versions eliminate the need for animal byproducts. Families never have to choose between paying for medication or putting food on the table. Children with diabetes grow up healthy, unrestricted by the disease that once claimed the lives of so many. Across the world, diabetics live full, happy lives, their survival promised by a treatment that is as common as the air they breathe. Except that's not how it happened. Instead, greed took hold. The patent, no match for human ambition. And people die, not because treatment doesn't exist, but because they can't afford it. In 1941, you're involved in a tragic plane crash. In an instant, the fight to protect insulin loses its greatest champion. But imagine for a moment that you're here today, looking at the world you helped shape. Your discovery, insulin, is everywhere, saving millions of lives. But insulin has now become the focus of billion-dollar empires. 3 companies, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi, control 96% of the global market, charging hundreds of dollars per month for a product that costs less than $10 to make. You think to yourself, how did this happen? It's quite brilliant, really. First, there's evergreening patents. You'd think a patent would eventually expire. Well, they do, unless you know how to play the game. Companies tweak the formula just enough to file a new patent, resetting the clock. Maybe it's a new delivery device, or insulin that now dissolves 0.02 seconds faster, because that's clearly what's been holding everyone back. It deserves another 20-year patent, right? These small changes rarely improve the product, but are fantastic at keeping competitors out of the game. Then there's the problem with biosimilars. They're not like generic drugs, which are easy to replicate. Because insulin is a biologic produced from living organisms, making a copy is like finger painting the Mona Lisa while blindfolded using homemade paint. You can try, but people aren't exactly lining up for photos. It'll never be the same. The complexity and cost of creating biosimilars make competition nearly impossible. And those with enough resources to compete, well, they're already on the same team. In the United States, things get even worse. The government can't negotiate drug prices, leaving pharmaceutical companies free to charge whatever they like. There must be some light at the end of the tunnel. You look even deeper. Headlines of Eli Lilly's decision to slash consumer prices by 70%, while the others follow suit. See, they're coming together. But these cuts are cleverly timed with reduced rebates to providers. By reducing prices, Eli Lilly isn't losing money. They're saving tens of millions of dollars in the long run. A PR stunt offered as charity. The question still lingers. How did it come to this? Maybe the problem isn't just the system. And maybe it all starts with you. So where did you go wrong? It wasn't in the work. Insulin is a triumph, a testament to human persistence and innovation. Good job. It was in something much more human. Your faith. That the world would honor your vision, that governments would act in the public's interest, and that corporations would see beyond their bottom line. But even good intentions can crumble if the systems are designed to fail. Maybe instead of selling the patent outright, you could have created a foundation, a not-for-profit to protect the rights of insulin. Pharmaceutical companies could have licensed production, but under strict conditions, pricing tied to production costs, limiting profit margins, and transparency. It wouldn't have been easy, and there's no telling if it would have worked. But your story shows us something bigger. That failure is not the end. It's the beginning of change. While the system may be flawed, the people fighting to make insulin a right, not a privilege, prove that your hope wasn't misplaced. It's alive in every activist, every advocate, and every person demanding better. And perhaps your story isn't just a lesson. It's a spark that could ignite the conversation to change the world.